Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Another day's journey. So glad about it and so grateful for you joining with me, Pastor Waller, for another Real Talk with Pastor Waller. This is an opportunity for us to just have conversations about what's happening in our community, really focusing on the Northwest section. I think that all of us as pastors need to think about our parish. And none of us are the pastor of the whole city. All of us have a section of the city where we are serving. And I believe that if each of us does our thing in our area, we'll all meet up together and we make a difference in the community. I am honored to serve in Uptown. I'm honored to serve in the Northwest section. Because we are one church in two locations, I'm in the 8th and also the 9th as it relates to councilmatic districts. And so we also have different state representatives. So I'm honored to be in conversations for the Germantown area, as well as the Mount Airy area, and in some sense across the street over there, Montgomery. Mm-hmm. And so I'm grateful for that. And we're always raising questions from our Christian perspective. So that's really what this is. And I'm grateful for all of those that have come on this show and will continue to come on the show. Now, our goal ultimately is to get some younger people on this and even influencing what we talk about and running. At some point, you're going to see some young person get on here and start doing this thing with me. Almost like Mike Jarrett and Chanel Jones. Remember on Channel 29, at some point, we're going in that direction because we have to talk about where the church goes from here over this next decade. So that's the thought, and that's where we are today. Now, to that end, we've got another conversation tonight about the Senate race, the state Senate race. Obviously, you all know that Art Haywood sits in that seat, but he does have an opponent. So Art was on, and we wanted to make sure that you know about all of the persons that are in this race. And we have another young man who actually grew up in this church, Michael Cogbill, who is here to talk about why he, as a young man, 37 years old, is jumping in this race for this state Senate seat. Michael Cogbill, welcome to Real Talk with Pastor Waller.
Thank you, Pastor Waller. I'm deeply excited. As you know, you baptized me. I'm a member at Enon Tabernacle. My principles, my Christian ideology, the policies that I want to advance are really led by my faith. So I'm so happy to be on here, especially on my birthday on April 20th.
Amen.
It's deeply important to me.
I got you. So thank you for that. And so, let everybody know about you, who you are, where you're from, and why you're running for this seat.
Okay. All right. So my name is Mike Cogbill. I'm an organizer. I'm an activist. I'm a problem solver. For the last 10 years, I've been doing like progressive organizing, issue advocacy, voting rights. I worked at the AFL-CIO for about 2 or 3 years doing like economic justice, fighting for good jobs, fighting for equitable opportunities within the trades. Before that, I worked at Ceasefire PA as a gun violence prevention organizer, understanding policy and stuff like that, and then trying to teach our people about policy or getting involved with the process beyond like election day, doing like issue advocacy, writing op-eds, organizing grassroots lobby days, doing postcards to your legislators, teaching people how to pressure like their politicians to sign on the good bills. I was really passionate about it. I always like doing the work that has some sort of resistance. I did voter protection with the Pennsylvania Democratic Party, and also Common Cause, but I did voter protection right after I ran for Congress. If you remember, I ran for United States Congress. I got myself on the ballot. This was during like the legislative remapping process. So I collected all 2,000 of my petition signatures. My petition was challenged. I served as my own attorney to get on the ballot. So I represented myself. I won that case. I beat one of the best lawyers in the state. I think I'm running for office because I have a divine anointing to do this work. Even in this moment, like to talk about primarying a strong incumbent, a progressive incumbent, a smart incumbent, and to talk about my candidacy on my birthday with the person who baptized me, like I believe I'm here to do this work. And then I like causing trouble. I do know when I'm walking in the Gethsemane, but I always pray like, God, not as I will, but as you will. And somehow policy ideas, understanding policy, breaking down policy, talking about taxes, talking about gun violence prevention are these issues. It comes to me, even serving as my own lawyer. I don't have a JD, I don't have a Juris Doctorate, but I was able to like represent myself in election just because I wanted to be on the ballot in that season in my life. And I did it, and I continue to do this work. And I this time they didn't even challenge my petition or anything. I was able to stay on the ballot and get our campaign off the ground. So
okay, well, thank you for that. So tell me how we who are out here looking at who's running, how should we view that? Because you just offered up, you ran for Congress.
Yes, sir.
Now you're running for state senate. Yeah. And so from those of us on the outside, it looks like, okay, you just running for stuff. And did you want to do that? Do you want to do this? What is that? How should we view someone who seems to just like to run for office in general?
Yeah. I don't know if it's about running for office, but just a conviction to serve.
Okay. All right.
I literally pick up trash with my bare hands as I'm putting my lawn sign on like people's lawns. I'll pick up the trash with my bare hand. I put constituents in my car. It makes me feel good when people call my cell phone and say, Mike, like we have an issue on the block. We want you to fix it, or we know you can execute. I like service. And then also as an African-American, like a young African-American doing this work in Philadelphia, I think like what I enjoy about it is exemplary service, like being astute to the tax programs that we need for relief, or understanding like the homestead tax program or low income tax program, getting people into those programs. Something that I had a brief opportunity to work in city council, something that I was able to do, just using my intellect and privilege. When people would come in and they were facing eviction and they didn't know that you can get like legal counsel, free representation, I would walk them over to the CJC, show up with them for a court date, walk them in, spot a nonprofit attorney, like say, hey, this person looks like they might work for CLS, or this person might work for Philadelphia Legal Assistance or the Disability Legal Services, like all of these, Senior Law Center, like all of these people have like nonprofit attorneys within those buildings where you can get like help on the spot. And sometimes just the difference between you being evicted or not being evicted is just a little bit of information, like one bit of information saying, all right, well, you get Good Shepherd Media, or you get Good Shepherd Mediation. You're allowed to have or somebody come into the courtroom and represent you, and you can potentially get like 6 months to pay your rent or get caught up on your rent. But a lot of times I was noticing like people with intellectual disabilities, would be, showing up, or it would be a senior citizen who didn't have a lot of information, or sometimes immigrants. And it would be like, well, oh, you didn't know that you get a lawyer or you have access to like legal representation to get through this. And I would help them find those resources that they need. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I would buy people 6 months. I would play around with it. I would try to buy you 6 months, 7 months at a time in your home, okay, and figure out if you need transitional housing or move you somewhere else.
Gotcha.
But I really like doing that. We're just servicing people, helping people, being there. Sometimes a bit of information can be like a determinant of life or death.
Yeah, now that's real. That's real. So, people are making a decision about you today, listening to you on here. As everyone knows, I'm not an endorser. Yeah. I view myself as a pastor. As I've said, on the May 20th, I'm going to be a part of helping everybody get back together. I'd like to think that when we choose who our congressperson is going to be on the 19th, on May 20th, I hope to be a part of saying to everyone, okay, one of you won, the other two of you in the congressional race, you're still important. How can we work together for our city with you? On the other side of the 19th, one of you is going to win, and then the other is still going to be important. And so that's how I understand my role, but also to facilitate everybody getting a chance to hear from everybody. So that's what this is about. This is Philly. You grew up here. You locate people by where'd you grow up, where'd you go to school. So give us a little bit of that. You're 37 years old, but where'd you grow up? What schools did you go to?
So I think it make like my journey unique. I grew up in North Philly, 25th and Cambria, and then I stayed at my aunt's house sometimes. Her and her husband bought a home in Mount Airy. They kind of like watched over me, helped. It takes a village to raise a child. We know that, we say that in the church all the time, but they helped me. So I think, well, first being raised by a woman, my mom, my aunt, my uncle was deeply important in my development, my upbringing. But that like knack for advocacy, wanting to do this work, or noticing that like North Philly looks different than Mount Airy. Being able to go to a school like Project Learn and then going to a school like Emlyn, you notice like, oh, well, the way they teach here at Project Learn and at Emlyn is different. Like I've always noticed the difference. So maybe 3rd and 4th grade, I went to the school called Project Learn. And then when I got to Emlyn, I was put in like a mentally gifted course. But I've always felt like a guilt, or felt like maybe if more people had like a strong upbringing or like a strong village, or people who would read to them or like force intellectualism on them, like I think they would be like mentally gifted too. I never thought I was more special than anybody.
So let me ask what you're saying. So are you saying that when you went to Project Learning, that was a better experience for you and put you ahead when you got to Emlyn?
It put me ahead of the curve. I got to Emlyn. And
Okay.
I was talking about unidentified flying objects and,
Gotcha.
playing chess and
Okay. All right.
intricate Lego builds and stuff like that.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I remember the teacher was like, well, I want you to take this test. And maybe I was a little bit of not the best behavior. So she wanted me out the
I
class
would
for
remember
a second. And she was like, you better pass this test. And maybe it was like saying, he couldn't be interested in this work because he's thinking about something or thinking further ahead. And I did extremely well on the test, so I was putting that But again, I felt like more people would have had that opportunity if they had a chance to go to a school like Project Learn.
Okay.
But yeah,
tell us what Project Learn was.
it was a private school on Germantown Avenue.
Okay.
It wasn't like a Germantown Friends or like a Penn Charter.
Yep.
It was one of the more affordable ones.
Okay.
Really big on like independent learning, really big on like ecological education. We would spend a lot of time like in the backyard. I remember finding garden snakes and learning about like different types of rocks. I think that's where I learned the word amoeba and paramecium and those biological terms from being at like Project that Learn. School and stuff like that. That's another reason why I'm saying like Philly public schools, I think we would do so much better with like littering and blight and trash and protecting our environment if we just had environmental education. But we're locked in classrooms and whatnot for 8 hours a day while kids at Springside Chestnut Hill get to be in the Wissahickon or they get to collect bugs and collect rocks, and they just have a better appreciation for the environment. And I think my appreciation for our environment comes from being at a school like Project. Like every kid don't get that opportunity. I had a chance to go to private schools here and there. I went to Lincoln University. I wanted to study like physics and astronomy. I think I was one of the few African-American, like indigenous African-Americans trying to study it because we just don't like really promote STEM in Philly public schools or like kids from impacted communities. I think even if you go to a Catholic school, I think a lot of times we're just a little bit behind than like other countries or other school districts. And you got to remember our Philly school district, for the longest time, like we won a big lawsuit, a federal funding lawsuit. But even with that, we still got a structural deficit of $300 million. And then even with winning that lawsuit, like we still got to pass a formula through the legislature, the same legislature where they don't want to raise the minimum wage and stuff like that. So we still got to like think, and it's almost like we need reparations. Unfortunate, like it's almost like we need education reparations. If you don't go to a school like Central, if you don't go to a school like a girls' high, if you don't go to a Catholic school or something like that, like the opportunity to enter the advanced workforce is like almost not there. And then we were talking about trades, myself and John, Miss Francis. You know, we were all in here talking about the trades. And we don't get access to those opportunities like that. I know Miss Francis mentioned like us having to adopt the soft skills and execute that component of being accepted into the trades. But soft skills are only but so much if you got to catch like 2 buses to get out to the Northeast and you don't have a car, or you got to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Like I think we want people to understand that these goals are achievable without having to jump through hoops.
Gotcha. Thank you for that, and that's a good segue. I will agree with you. One of the things that you'll hear me say often is the need for the Lincolns and the Cheneys, and I rep Lincoln because Lincoln in 2014 honored me with an honorary doctorate.
Yep.
And because of that, that's my HBCU. I celebrate them. We just supported them we supported them on Resurrection Sunday. But here's my point. Lincoln will expressly point out, and Cheney will expressly point out, that they lower the elevator to let someone in that may not have been ready for the collegiate experience, but when they let you out, when you get a degree from Lincoln or Cheney, you are ready for the world. You really are ready, and I believe that. And because of, in some cases, some of our high schools in Philadelphia will release you and you're not ready. I celebrate Cheney and Lincoln as institutions that say, hey, you may not be ready for Temple or you may not be ready for Drexel, but we can help you get there so that when you get out, you're ready to do what you've been equipped to do. So I celebrate those institutions. You brought up the P word, progressive. You know, in Philadelphia, when we talk about sort of political camps and all of that, where do you locate yourself as a person? You're Democrat, Republican, you're progressive, you're moderate, you're conservative. How would you wrap your title in?
I know. I'm so glad you asked this question, and I think this makes like my journey unique, or the trajectory unique. I like to think like I'm a pragmatic leftist. Policies, words like tax the rich, it makes sense. Like the Pennsylvania Policy Center.
There is a way that I can embrace loving everyone, no matter who they are. Is not synonymous or equal to I theologically agree with this choice in your life, which tends to happen. So we can make that a whole conversation. So the fact that you are, and I'm owning my word since he brought this up, you know, I believe that the creational intentionality of God is the way you come here while broken is who you are.
Yes, sir.
I believe that the creational intentionality of God is that man is to be prepared to woman, woman is to be prepared to man. Anybody that differs from me is still a human being who deserves my respect, love. And so as a Christian pastor, I don't believe in marrying a man to a man. But as an American, I can make room for the fact that all America doesn't have to believe what I believe. Therefore, if two men want to be married and someone else wants to do it, they can do that. I'll defend their right to do that, but that does not mean that I will want to be forced to do it or will do it. And so I need to qualify that because you're right. We have to love everybody and we have to make room for everybody in the world so that we can live in what is now these yet to be United States. So I'm glad you heard the love. And what's hard about living in that center is that our words get twisted, our words get misunderstood. But love is the ethic coming out of the church. Every human being, whether they agree with you or not, whether you agree with their decisions or even understand their world, has dignity and should be respected. So sir. I'm glad you picked up that part.
I definitely pay attention. When I think 2 weeks ago you had a conversation about masculinity.
That's right.
And I was thinking I interpret my masculinity as my service to God. Not being afraid to talk about those issues. Not being afraid to fall behind on my rent because I want to pay for campaign stuff, or just not being afraid to be convicted to do this work, not being afraid to show up here and talk about my campaign or show up anywhere, not being afraid to run against an incumbent. I think my Christianity removes fear. It puts love in my heart. And again, I really do believe I'm able to do this work.
Got you.
All of the issues, like the most pressing political issues of this time, I've organized around. So I did economic justice with the AFL-CIO. I did gun violence prevention with Ceasefire PA. Don't forget, I worked for the NAACP. I served as PAC chair, and I served as state coordinator. In 2020, I already gave Trump the belt, Pastor. I'm telling you. I ran the AFL-CIO's program, and I ran the NAACP's program, and we won. Those were two of the biggest programs in our state. And we won. But when I say I believe God has given me the gift to do this work and execute, I've won over 10 campaigns in our state. I worked on Josh Shapiro's campaign for Attorney General, Eastern District Court, Kai Scott, when she ran for common police court judge.
Yeah.
I worked on her campaign. Commissioner Omar Sabir, from the time he started as a traffic court, running for traffic court judge to running as commissioner, working on his campaign was important because we shared like the same phenotype as urban Black men. I think he does well in protecting democracy. And democracy is like, don't forget the civil rights movement, the Voting Rights Act. Democracy is like a Black person's issues. The attacks on democracy, the gerrymandering, like we're directly impacted by those issues. And then the voting rights. Look, again, you talked about in the pulpit, SAVE Act. You were warning us. This may have been 2 months ago. You was talking about SAVE Act, warning us, them trying to keep us from voting. Why they try so hard. I did voting rights protection, like I said, with the Pennsylvania Democratic Party and then with Common Cause. So I did coordinated campaign voter protection work, and then I did like nonprofit voter protection work. And I just want to keep it going. I think a lot of the stuff that we want done, whether it be codifying our civil liberties, whether it be ending a uniformity clause, like changing our tax structure, all of this stuff has to go to like the ballot. Like it requires constitutional amendment. That's going to require somebody to knock the doors, to make the calls, to show up, to work hard, to flip the Senate, mobilizing people for marches. The No Kings March. The NAACP has said like we should get involved with No Kings and whatnot, but I know that looked a little bit different. The organizers you see there and the people you see fighting for our issues it's a difference between somebody who shows up to a No Kings rally or somebody who shows up to like advocate for Kata Scott or advocate for that. It's like two different, or somebody who's showing up for a gun violence prevention march and somebody who's showing up for a march on Harrisburg, potentially like getting money out. Like it's different types of advocacy. But I wanted to say I organized the No Kings March as well. And just to see like older Black, I would say progressives or liberals showing up, wanting to do that work. And then that stuff impacts us, the gerrymandering, the racism, the misogyny coming from the Trump administration. I always talk about how it impacts your like nervous system, how it makes you feel some type of way when you see stuff on Twitter or you think we're going to war. I remember for a week I would hear an airplane and look up and wonder, like, is something going to happen here or something like that? So.
You know, it's interesting you raised that because all of this stuff that we're talking about, particularly with Iran, this is at least 40 years old. When I was in the Army in 1983 is when those soldiers were killed in Beirut, and it was Iran. And so we've lived for 40 years, and then they're trying to tell us that just a few weeks ago, we were 2 weeks away. We've been 40 years living with this. And if I had time, I would remind you, they just came out with the information that they were they were trying to attack Iran because they knew that Israel was going to attack Iran. And this is what we're talking about. If you knew that Israel was going to attack Iran and Iran would attack us, why didn't you use your power to tell Israel to not attack Iran? But that's a whole nother discussion. Listen, Mike, I am so grateful that you are here. You're still young enough to go to law school because you have a gift and you've got passion. But I wanted people to hear from you. I wanted people to know what you are thinking and know why you are doing this. We've got to have people on with their boots on the ground here in the community. And so I thank you for coming on. We're going to pray for you. And I want to thank you all for spending this time with Real Talk with Pastor Waller. This is Mike Cogbill. He is running against Art Haywood. And we wanted to make sure that everybody knew both persons for that state Senate race. Want to remind you that I'm looking forward to seeing you in the morning as we worship God in spirit and in truth. I hope that you've been informed. I hope that you even hear in the nuances of this conversation, both the highlights and lowlights of our public education, of our school system, but also what we have available to us in the city of Philadelphia. I'm committed to making sure that we win. We are going to win as it relates to we as a people. This thing is going to get better, but we're going to have to all work together. So listen, let's get ready to go to God in prayer, and I will see you all in the morning. God, I bless you and I thank you. Thank you for what our eyes have seen, our ears have heard, and our hearts have felt. I thank you for Mike, and I thank you for his unique perspective on the world. I thank you for his journey. And I pray, oh God, that you would help us to make right decisions around our Senate races, our representative races, around our congressional race. And I pray, oh Lord, that this will light a candle under each of us to do our part in our community. I pray for Mike, and I pray for Art, and I pray, God, that you would use them both according to your will. And then, God, I pray now as we prepare to go to churches across this city, that tomorrow morning, each man or woman that stands to preach the gospel will stand with power and stand with conviction that we might be better. Dismiss us from this place, but never from your saving grace. Give us traveling grace until we meet again. It is through Christ, and for his sake we do pray. Let us all say, amen. Amen. Listen, love you much. God bless you and God keep you is my prayer.